Imagine a creature that cannot grow old. Not a drug, not a scientist's fantasy, not a movie plot. A living being that is breathing somewhere in the ocean right now. While you watch this video, it is not drawing any closer to death. Its body does not wear down the way ours does. The clock that ticks inside each of us is, in its case, either broken or running backward. It sounds like a fairy tale, but it is cold science. On our planet, there really are animals to which age is almost irrelevant. Some return to childhood when they grow old. Others live for 5 centuries in a row. Still others, biologically, should never die of old age at all. And the most unsettling part of this whole story is that people have been hunting them for a long time. Not for their meat and not for their beauty, for their greatest secret. The secret of eternal youth, which nature has hidden inside the most unexpected bodies. We are used to thinking that death from old age is inevitable, that every living thing one day weakens, withers, and fades. That is how we are made, and our dogs, and the trees in the garden, even enormous elephants and whales. Aging seems like a law of nature against which there is no defense. But nature loves to break its own rules, and in its quiet laboratories, on the seafloor and underground, experiments are running that last for thousands of years. Today we will descend to where time flows differently. We will gather the 7 most astonishing immortal creatures on Earth. We will break down exactly how each of their secrets works, and we will understand why the planet's finest minds are obsessed with the idea of stealing these abilities from animals. This story begins with a tiny creature that can do the impossible. It can become a child again. Somewhere in the warm waters of the Mediterranean swims a jellyfish smaller than a fingernail. Its name is Turritopsis dohrnii. A full-grown individual is no more than 5 millimeters across. Through its transparent bell, a bright red stomach shows through. Along its rim trail dozens of thin white tentacles. At first glance, it is an ordinary, unremarkable jellyfish. But it is precisely this creature that broke one of the fundamental laws of biology. When an ordinary jellyfish grows old, it dies. When this one grows old, it does something else. It refuses to die and begins to live all over again. Scientists first noticed this by accident, back at the end of the last century. A young researcher was keeping these jellyfish in a jar and waiting for them to die. But they would not die. Instead of fading away, they turned back into their juvenile form. To understand how strange this is, picture a human being. An old man who has lived a long life suddenly feels the end approaching, and instead of dying, his body begins to melt away. The wrinkles smooth out, the bones soften, and he settles back into an infant. And then he grows again, and ages again, endlessly, in a loop, never knowing the finale. This is exactly what the tiny jellyfish does. When it is threatened with death from old age, disease, or injury, its adult cells reorganize. Scientists named this process transdifferentiation. A specialized cell that was part of a tentacle or a muscle turns into a completely different kind of cell. The jellyfish's body settles to the bottom and becomes a polyp once more. From that polyp, new jellyfish later grow. And in theory, this can go on without end. Of course, in the real ocean, this jellyfish is still mortal. A fish can eat it. It can die from disease or a blow of the elements. But from old age as such, it is not obligated to die. In its case, age stops being a death sentence. That is exactly why scientists nicknamed it the immortal jellyfish. And that is exactly why laboratories all over the world are after it. If we understand how an adult cell can roll itself back and rewrite its own fate, a path opens toward treating aging in humans. This ability is tied to the very same mechanisms that govern tissue growth and the development of cancer. The little jellyfish holds within it the key to an enormous mystery, and it is only the first on our list. Next comes a creature that does not return to childhood. It simply never leaves it. In freshwater lakes and rivers lives a tiny creature called the hydra. This is not the mythical monster of legend, but a modest animal a few millimeters long. A thin, transparent body, a crown of tentacles, and that is all. The hydra attaches itself to water plants and catches small prey. Millions of people walk past ponds like these without knowing that a miracle lives there. Because the hydra, as far as we can tell, does not age at all. For years, scientists observed entire colonies of these creatures. They expected that over time, the animals would begin to weaken and die more often. That is what happens to everything. But with the hydra, it did not happen. Its risk of death stayed tiny and did not rise. Not after a year, not after 4. The hydra's secret hides in what it is made of. Its body consists almost entirely of stem cells. These are special cells that can divide without end. They constantly create new tissue to replace the old. Imagine a wall in which every brick is continuously swapped out for a fresh one. From the outside, the wall looks the same, but inside it is forever new. The hydra renews itself the same way. Old cells leave, young ones take their place. The body is, in effect, rewritten from scratch every few days. And in this constant renewal, there is simply no room left for aging. There is nothing to grow decrepit when you are made entirely of forever young material. In ideal conditions, a hydra can live indefinitely. Scientists seriously argue that it does not die of old age in principle. It is killed only by predators, disease, or lack of food, but not by time. And once again, this is not just a curious fact from a textbook. If we work out how the hydra's stem cells keep their power for so long, we can understand human aging. After all, our own cells can renew themselves too, but over the years, they lose that ability. They grow tired, they break, they refuse to divide. The hydra has none of this wear and tear. It seems to have found the setting for eternal youth and never resets it. Our first 2 stories were about tiny creatures. Now the scale of time is about to become truly vast. Our next hero lived for 5 centuries. In the year 2006, scientists raised an ordinary-looking mollusk from the floor of the Icelandic Sea, an unremarkable shell of the species Arctica islandica. There are millions of them on the cold seabed. The researchers were studying the climate of the past and collecting shells as an archive. These mollusks grow annual rings on their valves, like trees. From the rings, you can read how long the animal lived. The scientists opened the shell to count the layers, and with that opening, they accidentally killed their captive. Only afterward did it become clear exactly whom they had destroyed. It was the oldest individual animal ever known to science on Earth. At first, they counted about 400 rings. That alone made the mollusk a record holder. But later, the scientists recounted the layers with more precise methods, and the number grew. It turned out the mollusk had lived 507 years. They named it Ming, after the ancient Chinese dynasty, because it was born around the year 1499. Just think about that number. When this mollusk was young, America had not yet been properly discovered. Many of the great painters of the Renaissance had not yet been born. Not a single country existed in its present form. And all that time, it lay quietly on the bottom and filtered water. Whole empires were born and crumbled above its head. How the mollusk managed to live for 5 centuries, science is still sorting out. Part of the secret lies in its slow, economical metabolism. In cold, dark water, everything happens unhurriedly. Its cells are extremely resistant to the damage that piles up in other creatures. Ming's body seemed able to protect itself from internal wear. The bitterest thing in this story is how it died. A creature that had survived 5 centuries perished at the hand of a human who wanted to learn its age. We killed the oldest animal on the planet just to count its years. There is a dark irony in this, worth pausing to consider. And our next protagonist lives in icy darkness and swims there to this day. Deep beneath the Arctic ice glides a huge, sluggish shadow. This is the Greenland shark, one of the most mysterious fish in the ocean. It grows longer than a passenger car. It moves so lazily that it seems almost asleep. And it lives an incredibly long time. A few years ago, scientists set out to determine its true age. In ordinary fish, age is read from hard tissues with rings. But this shark has almost none of those convenient markers. So the researchers came up with a clever trick. They began studying the lens of the eye, which forms before birth and never changes throughout life. From it, you can read in what era the animal appeared. The result astonished even the scientists themselves. The oldest of the studied sharks turned out to be around 400 years old. Some estimates went even further, toward 5 centuries. This makes the Greenland shark the longest living vertebrate on the planet. Picture a fish that was born before Peter the Great came into the world. It was already swimming in cold waters when people still traveled under sail. Nearly 20 generations of human lives have come and gone above it. And it still slowly patrols the icy abyss just the same. And the most amazing thing is how incredibly late it matures. The shark does not become an adult until around the age of 150. Just think, it takes 150 years simply to grow up. This shark grows by mere centimeters a year. Its life flows in some entirely different rhythm. Cold, darkness, and sluggishness seem to stretch time out for it. Scientists suspect that it is precisely its ultra-slow metabolism that prolongs its life. The slower the body works, the less it wears down. But there is no exact answer yet, and that is part of its mystery. This shark reminds us how little we know about our own planet. A creature whose life is longer than some nations hides right beneath the polar ice. And we have only begun to understand how it manages it. If the cold depths grant such a lifespan to a fish, what do they do to a giant with warm blood? Our next hero is enormous, and it too barely ages. In those same icy waters of the Arctic lives the bowhead whale. This is a true giant, one of the largest animals on Earth. It comfortably lives to 200 years and more. Among all the mammals on the planet, it holds the record for longevity. But it is not only the length of its life that amazes. What amazes is how little it gets sick. You would think that the more cells a creature has, the higher the risk that one of them breaks down and turns cancerous. The enormous whale has cells beyond counting. By every calculation, it should suffer from tumors constantly. But that does not happen. The giant lives 2 centuries and scarcely knows cancer at all. This paradox long gave scientists no peace. When researchers read the whale's genes, they found the answer. Its body can repair its own DNA far better than ours. Inside every cell hides a molecule with a complicated name, a special repair protein. The bowhead whale has 100 times more of this protein than others. It quickly finds breaks in the genetic code and heals them over. Imagine a huge city where a whole army of craftsmen is at work. They instantly patch any crack the moment it appears. The buildings in such a city stay sound for centuries. The whale's body is built in a similar way. Damage in its cells does not get a chance to accumulate and turn into disease. Instead of destroying broken cells, the whale carefully repairs them. It is this strategy that grants it 2 centuries of life without cancer. That is exactly why the bowhead whale became a favorite of scientists who study aging. If its repair mechanisms could be transferred to humans, the consequences would be enormous. Many diseases of old age arise precisely from accumulated damage in DNA. Our cells repair themselves, but with the years, they do it worse and slower. The whale seems to show what ideal repair could look like. Its example proves that an enormous body and a long life are compatible. That cancer need not be a death sentence, even for a giant. Nature solved this problem long before medicine appeared, and now people are trying to read its solution in the whale's genes. We have descended into the ocean and risen to the giants. Now we will go underground, to the strangest long liver of them all. Beneath the hot savannas of Africa, tiny, wrinkled creatures dig. This is the naked mole rat, a creature so unusual it is hard to believe in. It is a little larger than a mouse. Its skin is almost hairless, pink and folded. At first glance, it is an ugly, plain rodent. But it is precisely this animal that rewrote the textbooks on aging. All mammals obey one cruel rule. The older a creature is, the higher its risk of dying on any given day. In humans, this risk roughly doubles every 8 years or so. In mice, it rises even faster. This seems like an unshakable law of nature for all animals. But the naked mole rat behaves as if this law does not exist. For years, scientists tracked thousands of these creatures. They recorded at what age each of them died. And they discovered something impossible. The mole rat's risk of death does not rise with age. An old animal is no more likely to die than a young one. For biology, this is almost heresy, because it should not be so. The mole rat seems not to feel the passage of its own time. It lives 30 years and longer, which for a rodent is fantastical. A similar mouse fades away in 2 or 3 years. But this underground dweller seems frozen at a single age. Its body shows almost none of the usual signs of aging. The heart, the bones, and the metabolism stay strong for a very long time. But this is still not all that makes the naked mole rat astonishing. It almost never gets cancer, which for animals is an enormous rarity. Its cells can stop a tumor while it is still in the bud. It withstands conditions that would kill other animals on the spot. It endures the lack of oxygen in stuffy underground tunnels. It barely feels certain kinds of pain. It seems nature has gathered in this plain little creature a whole collection of superpowers, and all of them are tied to resistance to aging and disease. No wonder laboratories all over the world keep colonies of mole rats. Scientists hope to unravel how this rodent cheats time. If we understand its secret, we can approach human aging from a new angle. One last hero remains on our list. It lives in the deepest and coldest darkness on the planet. On the floor of cold seas lie strange creatures with no face and no bones. These are sea cucumbers, or holothurians, distant relatives of the starfish. They look like thick, soft sausages crawling slowly across the silt. The creature looks so simple that it is easy to mistake it for something lifeless. But within this simplicity hides one of the most unsettling mysteries of all. Sea cucumbers belong to the animals with what is called negligible senescence. This means they show almost no noticeable signs of decline. Their cells age so slowly that it is hard to measure, and their ability to restore their own bodies is simply fantastical. A sea cucumber can expel part of its insides when in danger and grow them back again. Recently, scientists ran an experiment that makes your skin crawl. They took pieces of a deep sea cucumber's body and placed them in seawater. Just fragments of tissue separated from a living creature. By every rule, those pieces should have died within a matter of days. But they did not die. These scraps of tissue went on living for more than 3 years. They healed their own edges, divided their cells, and rebuilt themselves. They behaved as though death were optional for them. Scientists called this natural immortality of tissue. Imagine a severed piece of a body living on its own for years. Not decomposing, but growing and renewing itself in plain salt water. To our biology, this sounds almost impossible. The cold depths where these creatures live are a strange place in themselves. There reigns eternal darkness, pressure, and an almost unchanging temperature. Time in this abyss seems to freeze along with the water. And the creatures adapted to it seem to take on that same quality. They are in no hurry to go anywhere and in no hurry to age. The sea cucumber reminds us that we have explored the ocean depths less than the surface of the moon. The most astonishing secrets of life may be hiding in that darkness. Creatures barely capable of dying of old age are crawling there right now. And we have only just begun to peer into their mystery. With this, our list of 7 immortal creatures comes to a close. But the real question is only beginning to ring out at full voice. We have traveled the path from a tiny jellyfish to a giant whale. We descended into the ocean abyss and burrowed underground. And everywhere we found the very same astonishing phenomenon. Nature knows how to get around aging, and it does so by different paths. Some roll back to childhood. Some forever renew their cells. Some repair their DNA. Some simply ignore the passage of time. These creatures prove that aging is not an iron law of the universe. It is merely one of the strategies that life has chosen for us. But other strategies exist, and they are working right now. Somewhere at this very moment, a jellyfish is growing younger, and a mollusk is living through yet another century. And this changes the way we look at our own mortality. This is exactly why science is so obsessed with these animals. Each of them is like a separate page in a book about eternal youth. For centuries, people searched for the fountain of immortality in legends and myths. And all that time, it was swimming in the ocean and digging underground. Of course, transferring these abilities to humans is incredibly difficult. Our bodies are built differently, and there is no simple recipe here. But the very thought that immortality is possible in living nature is intoxicating. Perhaps the key to aging is already hidden inside these strange bodies, and one day we will learn to read it to the very end. For now, it is worth remembering one simple and unsettling thing. Death from old age, which seemed to us inevitable, is utterly foreign to someone on this planet. And these creatures look upon our time very differently than we do. If this topic gripped you, write in the comments which creature or mystery I should make the next video about. I read every idea and often put them to work. And if you want more material that never makes it into the public eye, come join our Telegram channel. There I share the strangest, the most controversial, and the most hidden of everything our team uncovers. Thank you for staying with me to the end of this descent. And remember that our planet is still full of mysteries waiting for their hour.